for joining us for part 2 of my podcast interview with Jheri South.
But I want to talk about mothers, specifically females, ADHD, being a ADHD mom to ADHD kids. I think we already touched on that a little bit, but and I know and I don't even know if it's recent research, but it's stuff I've come upon recently is linking ADHD with perimenopause and how it just makes your life that much more hellish. Because I lived it this fall. I literally felt like I got hit by a truck and was like, what the heck is happening to my life? And I was like, I feel like I got my meds sorted out. I'm like a low dose of Adderall, and then I'm still on antidepressant, but I feel like we're good on that front. And then I was like, now I'm like bleeding for 3 months, and the doctors are like, I don't know, let's change your estrogen and whatever. And I go to another doctor, and they're like, yeah, no, that's probably not right, but we can't test your hormones because you're on birth control. And I just felt like I was being yanked around. Like, I felt like I was really trying hard to advocate for myself and to research out options. But I was just a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read something that talked about, oh yeah, and if you have ADHD, like, you're screwed. And I was like, okay, well, then what do I do about it? Like, now I know that, okay, maybe I feel better now that I know that I'm not completely losing my mind. Mm-hmm. But oh my gosh, can I just get some information on that? I'm feeling a little bit better, but it was like, I literally felt like some days were okay, most days were not. And I felt like I was really back in that really depressive mode. I could not be motivated to do anything. And it was just getting by. And I was like, my brain is beyond foggy. And this doctor's like, well, let's up your Adderall. And I'm like, I don't know if that's it, and I'd up the Adderall, and I'd be like, now I'm just fidgety and foggy and angry.
That is my pet peeve, because a lot of doctors will do this. And, full disclosure, I am not a medication specialist. I have just learned from some of the top doctors in the United States. But I did learn from Dr. William Dodson that when you don't have estrogen in your body, your ADHD stimulant medication will not work. And he told me, doctors will just prescribe more stimulant medication and it doesn't work.
Still not working.
And then I saw that. Yes, I saw that played out in real time. So many of my clients, they're doctors. And by the way, not just perimenopause or menopause, but also during their cycle, they would just give them 1.5 times their dose instead of the regular dose during that time of their cycle. But the estrogen is directly affecting whether or not the medication works. So if there's no estrogen, taking more medication is not the solution. So when we're talking about perimenopause or menopause, hormone replacement therapy, I'm just making a blanket statement here, but usually that's a really good option for women. But, you have to consult with your doctor and talk about all the pros and cons. But once you can get that balanced, your medication could potentially start working for you really well again. But that's the issue, right? Is that you're just taking more stimulant medication. And so ADHD women will say that it feels like their medication has gone off the rails. And it's not that their ADHD has gotten worse. It's that their hormones aren't balanced, right? So everything's feels off the rails because it's affecting your estrogen, your serotonin, and your cortisol levels. Those aren't balanced. You're now taking more stimulant medication in a lot of cases, and it's not helping at all. So that's why you can't address perimenopause or menopause just from a mindset place, just from a tools and skills. You do have to do both. You have to look at it from a hormone. There has to be something there that's fixed, whether your hormones are balanced, you go through hormone replacement therapy, and then look at something like what we're talking about here, like behavioral coaching, having the right kinds of tools to manage your ADHD. But in that stage, you also have to have grace with yourself. You have to understand, this is when it's really important for you to understand energy mapping, for example. What time of the day do you have the best focus? When do you have the least amount of focus? What ADHD boosters really work for you? Really bringing those tools into play where maybe you didn't need them as much before, you need them a lot more now. This is the phase you're in. You're not broken. Have grace for yourself. It will get better, but you really have to bring those tools in with balancing your hormones so that you can feel the way you want to feel instead of just, and if doctors just telling you to take more stimulant medication, or they don't want to look at hormone replacement therapy, or they're not listening to you, go find a doctor that will.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Advocating for ourselves is huge. And then, but what gets really frustrating is like, and then finding the time to see multiple doctors. You know what I mean? When you're like, give me an answer. You don't have to accept that first or even second answer. And I think we also get to trust ourselves, our intuition. I think it's really important to trust what that is telling you in that room. You know what I mean? And to really tap into that. So when you talk about hormone replacement therapy, when you talk about, I think another thing I learned that was key for me, building a list of your boosters. That has been key for me of getting better, get my dopamine boosters. And then having that to go to, like making sure they're tried, they're trusted, these will boost your dopamine. You know what I mean?
Right.
Have been a game changer, right? I think my estrogen finally leveled out with getting like on a different birth control. I have to be on birth control because, well, yes, I'm done having children, but also I have ovarian cysts, and the only thing that prevents them is birth control. And so until like I'm through menopause, that's the one drug that works. And so then my hormones can't be tested because if it's on birth control, it's always going to, anyway, whole thing. Right. But that being said, we have tools. We have cognitive behavioral therapy. We know that like, hey, these stimulants will not work when you're going through this and your hormones all over the place. And I think, oh my gosh, if someone told me that like in September, I would have saved myself like 3-4 months of just like,
Yeah.
Right. I think I called it hell. It was a dark place.
And you know what's funny is that well, it's just simple tools that really aren't that difficult to implement. I mean, that's the thing with a lot of times when we think of burnout, we think that I haven't gotten enough sleep, so I need to get more sleep. And ADHDers will spend a Sunday sleeping a lot of the day, and then on Monday they don't feel refreshed and ready to go back to work, and they're wondering, why don't I feel better? Why do I still feel like there's a problem here? And it's like, well, because ADHD burnout, I mean, I love a good nap, don't get me wrong, but ADHD burnout is usually a lack of dopamine. So what dopamine activities are we doing to get ourselves to a place of feeling refreshed? And so ADHD boosters, there's so many different things we could use for boosters. It's individual to each person, but they're small dopamine type activities that we schedule in our day. Like I'll do 2 throughout my day instead of waiting for myself to feel burnt out at the end of the day and then I crash. So it's just like little things like that. Yeah, you're scheduling, I have one like mid-morning and then another one mid-afternoon where usually it's just a 15 or 20 minute activity, but sometimes it could be running to go grab my favorite drink. Other times it's Marco Poloing my sisters or my friends. Sometimes it's listening to my favorite podcast, something that's not going to get me reeled in so that I'm not going to start watching like my favorite trash TV television show, right? Like I'll get sucked in, but something that I am able to just, kind of pull away momentarily, do my dopamine activity and then get back to work. It really does prevent burnout. But like you said, it's trial and error, just like medication. Like we can come up with some like good ideas, make some lists, but then we have to put it into play. Did that help me? Was I able to get back engaged, or did I sit and do my dopamine activity for 2 hours? That might not be the best activity. So we're experimenting with these things. That was part of what we did in your 5-week cohort. We crammed a lot of information in there, and it was an introduction to all things ADHD, but coming up with your own owner's manual. So you really understand your brain. What are your triggers? What creates burnout the fastest? What are your ADHD boosters to keep you going and not get burnt out? What part of the wired framework works the best for you? And how do you get yourself engaged? We want to be able to look back and go, oh, that's what I did. That's how I got engaged.
Yeah. What would you say to the mom that is working mom, busy, we're all busy, and running a household is also a full-time job. So for the moms that have multiple jobs that require hundreds of hours of attention, what would you advise them to do? Just let's say they just got a diagnosis in adulthood. What would be their first step? I mean, I would be like, we'll book a call with Jheri and she'll sort you out. You know what I mean? Like a place they could go. I would say, like, well, go check out her other podcasts or shows. Cause you kind of start from the beginning, like, do I have this thing? Like, and then you venture into, you know, other topics and stuff, which is absolutely wonderful and brilliant. But what would you say to that person, and how would you advise them? I mean, yes, have grace with yourself and all things, but it's kind of like a bomb went off a little bit, you know, like there's a release, but also, and then it comes back and you're like, oh my gosh. And it takes sorting through. What would you, I don't know, what would you say to that?
Well, you're not wrong. I would say, hey, come here and start with one of my cohorts, because it will give you a lot of information, but without giving myself a plug. But I do want to say, I really do mean that, because one of the reasons I dove so hard into this work, it wasn't to be a coach. It was to help my own family. My kids were struggling. Comorbidity rate is really high. I was really struggling understanding what was going on. And so at the time, it was really survival. And I you know how ADHDers are. It's like I hyper-focused on, I'm going to learn everything I can learn. I took a camera crew to Dr. Dodson's home. He's retired, and I did a 4-hour interview. I did other interviews with him. I started doing interviews with different experts and specialists, because I was determined to get the right information that I couldn't find anywhere. And then that turned into, I was already a coach helping neurodivergent individuals. So I really do think there's not a lot of people out there. There are some people out there, but there's not a lot of people out there that are really doing this at this level. So that's the first thing. That's why I do it, is I'm trying to be the person that I was looking for, that I couldn't find when I needed help. But the other thing is, it's just about having awareness. I know it's like, sometimes when I say these words, it's like, how can you really help someone understand how important this is, though? Because awareness is just a word. But when you read up on RSD and you really understand what it is, you want to get good at understanding how your brain works differently, and then understanding you have a different neurological system. It operates completely different than a neurotypical person. So all this time, you've been comparing yourself to someone who has different buttons that turn their brain on. They learn differently. They process information differently. And their way isn't right and yours is wrong. There's just more of that neurological system than ours. There's nothing wrong with the way that you do things. Learn about RSD, read up on it, figure out, like, what does an episode look like? How does that manifest in my life? You know, and then if you're interested in medication, you can go to chad.org. It's CHAAD.org. And there's a chapter in every state where you can, if you want to, join that chapter. And the reason you would do that is to find specialists who really know what they're talking about if you're interested in medication, so that you can go to somebody who knows what they're doing and you can trust that you're going to get good care.
Right. Yeah. Trust that you're going to get good care. And I think that's what it all comes down to, right? Is being able to trust someone with, I don't know, your life, your brain, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that's why I resonated so fully with you from the get-go. And I was like, she knows her stuff. She's done her research. She's lived it. She's raising these kids in the midst of it. And I get all emotional, about it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, how many of us out there that are like just struggling so hard, and you're like, there are answers. Yes. You're trusting doctors that don't have them, right? And so then they feel like, again, like we've said, like something's wrong with you. And it's not true. It's not true. We are wired differently, and we're raised in a world that educated us in a way that was great for the ones that, you know, were wired that way. And so there's hope.
There's hope. That's the message. There's so much hope. You're going to get to a point where you love that you have ADHD.
Yes.
It's a good place to be.
And that sounds so foreign, I think, to some people, just in the throes, like struggling. But how cool to get to a place where you're like, I'm super awesome. And what
I feel that
have,
way every day when I look in the mirror. It's so great.
it's so great. I'm like, so great. And you can, and it's good and it's important, because guess what? We deserve to be so great. We deserve to feel so great.
That's right.
And we deserve to love ourselves so fiercely that we will get to show others how it's done, no matter
That's
how
right.
we are wired, and be that example for our children that they can model.
Absolutely.
Right. Oh man. I love you so much, Jheri. And I'm so happy that you are in my life now. She's
I feel the same way.
But don't forget to check out all the things. It's in the show notes. You can head to our site. You can take some free, courses and sign up for some stuff. You can, I would challenge you to go into, not challenge you, it's not a challenge to go into YouTube and watch some
ADHDers need a challenge. We do challenge you.
I challenge you. I dare you. I dare you. Before tomorrow night.
Bet you can't do it.
Bet you can't. Bet you won't. Oh, bet you won't. That's like probably more than bet you can't. Oh. Isn't that funny?
Yes, it works.
A husband, and that's a whole other episode. Like, also send me what you would send a husband to just kind of break things down, because we're very, very neurotypically different.
Yes.
And I think most ADHDers are very different from their husband, how they work. I mean, male and females alone, but anyway,
Yes.
I digress. All right, Jheri, thank you so much for coming on We Got You Mama. Everyone, if something resonated with you in this episode, I want you to save it, and I want you to send it to someone that you think needs this, or send it to someone that you think, hey, I actually think this person might have ADHD. This will be super helpful for them. Please send it their way, because the more we share and the more we are open about this topic, the better we get to feel. Right? And the sooner we get to feel better. So do all those things, like and subscribe, send it to all your friends. And don't forget, we got you, Mama, and Jheri's got you. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.